Right on this computer. All right.
Yeah, got it. It's ready.
All right. All right, here we go. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to build out a reducer that is going to hold our global state for our data that creates all of these, like our rises, basically this data object here with the cases and everything. We're going to get that from a server now rather than from this data file. And we're going to house that in a reducer that is going to use an action and go through like a what they call the Redux Thunk, which is like a function within a function that allows you to call multiple dispatches. And it allows us to basically turn it into that finite state machine as far as only having one state at a time, or being in one state at a time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our new reducer. Oh, we're also going to learn how to combine reducers today too. That's going to be fun. So in our reducers file here, close that. Reducers, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this we'll call it the part reducer. Reducer.js. And that should be our new file. So we're going to think about different states that this might have. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to export. Actually, no, we're just going to create a const of initial state. So we can kind of model what we want our data to look like. That's going to be equal to an object. Now this object is going to have several different things that we know we're going to need in here. One is going to be parts. And right now we're just going to set that to an empty object because it should come back as one object. The next one we're going to have is called loading. And what this state is going to be, the loading state is going to be whenever the app is loading or in the process of making an API call, we're going to have this set by Boolean to display things on the screen rather than sitting there staring at something that might not be working. Give the user something like a spinner or something like that to show that the app is loading. So we'll give that an initial state of false. And then the last one we're going to have is called error. And errors, we're going to have that just as an empty string right now. That state is going to be in case we get any errors back from our API or through any of the actions that we are dispatching to this reducer. If any of them have an error, we want to display that error to the screen to the user. That way, the user will know what the error is, whether it be it can't get to the host or they're just not sitting there in limbo waiting, thinking something's working when it's not. So let's build our reducer. So that's going to be a const. Okay, we're going to do an export function, and we'll call this the part reducer. That takes in two values. The first one is state, and the second one is action. Now, here's where we want to do state equals initial state. And that way we have a state value predefined in our reducer, which is that initial state that we have set up there. All right, then we have our switch, which is going to be an action dot type. Open that up. We're going to set up our default, which our default is going to be return state. And let me know when you're there, because then we're going to set up our what we want to do to change states by our actions. So everybody at this point?
Yes.
All right. So our first case, we're going to call loading. And we will define these with variables later. Okay, I got to take that out, case loading. And what we're going to do is we're going to return the object is our state object, okay? So we're going to spread out that state. And then we want to get to our loading state. And we're going to say loading is going to be equal to true. So whenever we activate the loading case, we tell the app that it's loading, it's going to set our loading state to true. Make sense so far?
Yes.
All right, now let's make another case. Our another case is going to be, this one's going to be, we'll call this a success case. We'll just call it success. And what's going to happen on success is we're going to return an object. We're going to spread out that state. And then we're going to do two things in here. We're going to set parts is going to equal the action dot payload. So the parts will be what we get back from our API because this is successful. And then we're going to set our loading back to false. Follow me on that? So what we're doing right now is we're predetermining the states that our app is going to live in, like our finite state machine. We're giving it each state. It's going to be in this state of loading. It's going to be this state of success. The only other state that we can have for this reducer is errors. So that's the next case we're going to create. So we'll call this case error in all capital letters. And what we're going to do here is we're going to return our state object, spread it out, and we're going to set the error to the action.payload. And what that is, because when we set up our actions, our error is going to return some data. Like if something's not working properly, it's going to return a message, it's going to return something. And we're going to set that to our error state. And what we can do is we can conditionally check it through our app. We can check these states to say, hey, is error, is it undefined or is it valid? If it's undefined, don't do anything. If it's valid, display that error because something's wrong. So we need to see it. And that's basically what that's doing. So now we have this built. Let's go ahead and do an export of all of our defined cases.
Question here.
What's that?
Good question. So when it load, it defines the true, and success, if it's not working, it defines the false. So when it defines the false, it goes to the error and action that error. Is that correct?
What was that again? I didn't quite catch all that.
Loading, I got that. Like when it's true, it's loading.
Yep.
Okay. Success, when it's false, is when it's false. It runs the success. But when it's false, which is not true, then it runs success and error.
No. It's only going to run whatever we tell it to. So these do not go in order. This is a switch case, so it doesn't fall down the tree like a regular function. This switch it only does what we tell it to. So if we tell it in our action that it's loading, it's only running this.
Yes.
And then let's say in our action we tell it's an error. It won't go to success. It'll go right to error. But if we tell it that it's success, it will only run this.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, it only runs the block of code by the action that you give it. But what a switch case does is it allows you to put multiple cases of different things you want to do that don't have to be in order. So like I could have like 20 of these, and one of them is like an error API something or other. I can call just that case, and it'll change that state for me.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got it. Thank you.
No problem. All right, let's make our variables. So we have one called loading. We're going to set that equal to the string of loading. We have export const success. We're going to set that equal to This is pretty redundant, but necessary, as Tommy found out yesterday. Export const error.
Yep, those typos will get you.
Yeah. All right, so we have our pre-variables fine. So we're exporting our variable list and we're exporting our reducer. So now we have to be able to use this reducer. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another file in there. Matter of fact, let me look up my little cheat sheet from when I did this last. Here it is. Bum, 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 bum. In our reducers folder here, where we have our part reducer and our cart reducer and our part reducer, we are going to create a new file in here. And this new file, we are just going to name, let's see, I don't want to name it just index because that could be confusing when you look back. We'll name this combined. It's going to be a little long because normally you'd name this index. Combined reducers.js. That way it says exactly what it is, because this is exactly what this file is going to do. We're going to combine our part reducer and our cart reducer together. So they're just one in one store in Redux. And how we do that is we import from Redux a function called combine reducer. Reducers, plural. And we're going to set that equal to, or I'm sorry, not equal, from Redux. Okay. And then we're going to import our reducers. So now we're going to import, we know we need the cart reducer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this cart reducer. And I'm going to make these, I'm going to change these names here. And I'm going to say as cart. And I'm going to get that from a file path. That's same file, cart reducer. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Import the part reducer. And I'm going to do that as parts. And you'll see why I do this in a minute. It saves us some typing and some confusing. So now all we have to do after our imports is we're going to export a default of combined reducers. And inside of here, it takes an object. And what the object wants is our reducers. So our first one, we're going to call cart. And our second one, we're going to call parts because that's what we named them. Everybody follow that one?
Yep.
How are you on that one, Prapti? You understand what's happening here?
Yeah, I got it till import. Didn't get it to export.
Okay. Yeah, but are you all caught up? You got this caught up?
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
Okay. And I can give you kind of an explanation of why this is done this way. Is you want your app to be scalable. You know, like you're going to add like a bunch of stuff to this. Think it's a big company and we got a lot going on. Rather than having to go through and refactor a bunch of stuff when you add a new global state for like a new feature of your app, all you have to do is create the reducer and the actions and bring the reducer into this file and add it, and it's automatically in the Redux store for the rest of the app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so having this combined reducers as a separate file with your reducers, as you add to this, which you'll see because we're going to create that Redux store with the reducers next, and you'll see why that it has that power. So we're going to do that right now. Actually, let me go to back to my cheat sheet. That was that app that we did that. We did that in index. Yeah, this is where our provider's at. So in our index, we are going to do something here with this. See how we have this create store right here?
Yeah.
We are going to call a different import. rather than bringing this cart reducer in, we're going to grab something else. We are going to bring in that combined reducers. So we're going to import, I called that combined reducers, right? Anyway, I defaulted that. Did I default that? Export default, okay. Import combined reducers from, and we're going to our reducers, and we're looking for our combined reducers. So now this is the only thing you would ever need in here. Because no matter how many reducers you add, of course it's going to break right now because we don't have this doing everything. No matter how many reducers you add though, you only have to call that combined reducers method once in index and set it to the store. So while we're in here, we're going to add a couple of other things just because we're already here. We are going to add some dependencies. So go ahead and open up a new terminal, and we're going to do an npm install of a thing called the Redux logger. Let me make sure I got the naming right so I don't misspell it and get some weird package I don't want. Yeah, it's called Redux logger. We're going to get that because this in our function here on index where we create our store, we can actually add middleware to this store to have it check things as it goes through its motions of passing state to the application. So we can have it check one of them's logger, obviously, which it's really cool in your terminal when you're changing things in your app or your console logging. It gives you a previous state, what changed, and the new state as you go through it. So you can see exactly what Redux is doing. And the other one that we're going to bring in is called a Thunk. So we're going to install, and I believe it's called Redux Thunk. Redux Thunk. And what a thunk is a function that takes a function as its only argument. So it's like a function chained together. And what it does is if it gets its argument is a function, it moves on and runs that method. But if its argument is a string or a primitive JavaScript type, it allows it to pass through and move on. So it's a middleware. It checks to see if its argument's a function. If it is, it runs it through its functional motions. If it's not a function, it allows it to pass by. And that's what we use to call multiple dispatches in the Thunk. So let me know when you got both those dependencies installed.
It's done.
Done. All right, well, let's bring them on in then. So we're going to import, make sure I get these import right because I always call it the wrong way. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's not destructured. So we're going to bring in a Thunk from Redux Thunk. Oh, not React Redux. Redux Thunk. And then we're going to do the same thing for the logger. Redux logger. Okay, so we have both of those. And now we got to bring in something else too, where we're calling this create store from Redux. There's another method in here that we got to bring in, and it's called apply middleware. And we are going to use that in our create store. And how we do that is instead of our cart reducer here, because our cart reducer is no longer here. Only reducer we have in here is the combined reducers. That's where we're going to send into our store. And then our second argument for create store is going to be the apply middleware. Because now we wanted to look at this middleware that we've given it. And always remember when you're using the logger for Redux, like when you bring this logger in, it always has to be the last argument in your apply middleware method. If you put it in front, you won't get everything that it's checking. Because if it runs something past it, it won't look for it. So we'll bring in the Thunk first. That's our first piece of middleware. And our second one's going to be the logger. Just like so. I'm going to save that, and this still should be broken. Yep. So let me know when you guys are at this point, and we'll move on with creating an action.
Ready.
All right. Actually, before we create the action, we probably should fix our app here. So let's go ahead and get our, now that we combine these, let's get our cart working. So let's get rolling through these components here and fixing what's wrong. We'll just chase it by error first. Length of undefined, that's in the cart header. Let's go fix that one. Am I bringing in, see where this use selector is right here? In the cart header.
Yep.
All right. Instead of state equals state, it's gonna be state.cart. Do you know why that is?
Because cart is an object of state now, due to the.
Exactly. Whatever, you know, it's got a key. The state object has a key for each reducer that's in there in the combined reducers now. So that's why we renamed them rather than it being a cart reducer. I said cart reducer as cart and part reducer as parts. So when we chain these together, I could just call it by the cart and by the parts rather than having to type cart reducer and part reducer and, you know, spending that extra time typing. So we got that one fixed. Did you follow along with that, Prapti?
No, because it was throwing an error in combined reducer in mine. It says it's not an export from Redux, which I already did it.
All right. Share your screen. Let's take a look at it. We'll fix it. I say that with utmost confidence. We will fix it. All right, let's take a look at your combined reducers. Export default combined. I believe it's combined reducers, not combined reducers. Let me double check that.
Oh, because I added E inside.
Yeah, I think that D is what's getting you.
Yes, COMBIND.
Yeah, it's combined, COMBINE.
Oh,
No D.
E.
Yeah, combine and erase the D. No D is in dog. Combine reducers and then change your export default to the same. And save that and see if it goes away. We got another typo. Yeah, you missed the E there. Okay. We got a capital E somewhere.
In index.
Index. It's not there. It's right there. You just highlighted over it, line 15. And it might be, is it combined reducers or combine? What did we name the,
BIND, not E.
well, no, you could say, you could have that type that. I'm just looking at your file namings here too. Look at your file name there. Combined reducers. Are we pointing it to that way? Okay, no, it's just it's a typo there, but you see, but it matches up, so it'll still work. You see how your file name is reducers / combined reducers?
Yeah, but I think that's correct, right?
Yeah, it's correct. So it'll still work. Yes, definitely.
But if I say combined here,
yeah, you might want to change that to combine. Yeah.
So.
Oh, but you can't do that. No. Because the method is combined from Redux. We can't change that name. The only thing we can do is change our name in index. Yeah, so erase that D on line 5. Yeah, there you go. Save that one, and then go back into your index, and just change that. Yeah, get rid of the D in there, and the D on line 15 as well. Yeah. I like to, it might have worked the other way, but I like to keep my naming the same just to
Right.
keep from having a problem. So you should be back up and running then.
It throws an error, this one.
Oh, cart.items is undefined and the cart header. Okay, we can fix that. Go back into your cart header and scroll down. See where your use selector is, cart state equals state on line 25.
Yeah.
Make the second one state.cart because now we have multiple reducers and we got to tell it which one it needs and save that. Ta-da! It's pure sorcery. All right. So now that we have that going, so we got our combined reducers. We're creating two reducers. We're using them in our app. Let's make sure anywhere we called that selector, I want to go through the components and try and fix those now. So cart header was our first one. I'm going to go through the components list here. Let's see. We're using selector here. And here it is. We're calling carts. We're going to do state.cart and save. So anywhere we're calling just the state that we were before, we got to identify that as the cart now. So that one was in cart details. Everybody let me know when you get that one fixed.
Got it.
Got it. All right. So we were already in header. Let's go to category container. Let's see if we got it in here. Yep, we got it right here. Although we're not even using it, but let's just call it just to be safe. And we're just gonna make all these that we already did say state.cart. So that's the category container. Let's check our header. Our header has nothing. Check our part. Our part does not have it. Our parts card has it. So state.cart. And that's in the parts card. And then we'll move on to store category. Doesn't have it. And store container doesn't have it. So that should be all of them. So let's check our app real quick, make sure it works with that combined reducer. Add to cart, close. Let's get some storage. Let's grab this thing, it looks cool. The cart close, let's check out right there. We remove. We are good. App's functioning. Everybody caught up?
Yeah.
All right. Now the next thing we're gonna do with the Thunk and the way the state machine and the way it all works with Redux, it works off a thing called actions. And you kind of got a taste of that in the, where's my file at? Let's get rid of this. Let's bring in that. I'm gonna show you the cart reducer. Okay, you got a little taste in that because this action type, these are kind of considered actions or our cases. That's like an action. That's what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna build out an action file now to get our part data. So where you have a file called reducers, we're gonna make another file and source and we're gonna call it actions. A new folder, I should say. New folder called actions. Because most of the time you'll have multiples of these that are doing different things. Like this actions that we're gonna create is pretty much gonna handle the API GET request. So we can name this action. We'll have a new file. We'll call this the part action.
We created folder in source, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we have a part action. And our part reducer, we have those. Okay, so I'm exporting them out of the reducer. I could do that. It works either way. I'm just trying to think of how I want to do it. So in our part action, we got to import all of these because we're going to need these. The loading, success, and error. So let's do that first. We're going to import loading, success, and error. That's going to come from // our reducers and our part reducer. And then the next thing we want to import is Axios. Axios is going to make our API calls. Okay, and then the only other thing we have to do is create a function. We're going to create a GET request. We'll call it, we'll go ahead and export default a function, and we'll name that function, we'll call it get parts. Or should I name it the same name as the file? Oh no, I like get parts. We'll name it get parts. And this is where the thunk comes in. This is gonna look a little bit funny to you, a lot of you. Matter of fact, let's I did this a little different. I want to make this a fat arrow function. It probably won't let me do that as a default, will it? No, it won't. Okay, so we're just gonna export it then. Export const get parts equals a function that's not going to take in anything because we're not sending any data to this, but we're going to have our first fat arrow function that's going to take in a parameter that's called dispatch. And that's going to be the second fat arrow function that's going to do what we want it to do. That looks kind of funky, doesn't it? This is a function calling a function and then doing something. This is the thunk. That's basically what it is. And by bringing it into index where we call this thunk in our middleware, thunk is looking for something just like this. If it sees it's something that's not like that, like it sees like a string value or a regular dispatch like we have in our regular files that we're doing with our cart, it won't recognize that. It won't even go through it. But when it sees this, where you got basically a function that is calling a function and then finally returning something, that's when the thunk kicks in and runs its state machine methodology stuff, the magic as I call it. That's where the magic of the thunk happens.
So whenever you have to call the thunks, you have to pass a function inside the function.
Yep, a thunk will look like this. A lot of times you'll have something in here, like if you have any kind of input coming in, be like if you're posting something to an API, so you're doing a post like a login form, you would have the input for your login object of the user information, but your next one is almost always going to be dispatch. And that's because it's going to run the dispatch of the actions that in order that you put in there. Here we're just doing a GET request, so we don't need the input. But what we do in here is this is where we start calling our dispatch types, our payloads, and we do them in order on how we want it to run. And we use promises to do this. And we're going to use the Axios .then.catch promise chain to do this. We could do it with async await. You can do it with just raw JavaScript with try and catch. But I like Axios because it's cool. So we're just going to use that. So the first thing we want to do whenever this function is called, like when we're going to get parts, that's what's going to happen. We're going to get the parts. Our first action is going to be to dispatch. We're going to dispatch a loading call. Dispatch type is going to be loading. So the moment this function fires, we're in a loading state. It's going to be loading. And after that, we're going to run our, while it's in loading state, we're going to run our Axios. So now we're going to do an Axios. Oh, where did my square brackets come from? Axios.get. We're doing a GET request to Axios. And where we're going is we're going to that server that we made yesterday. So we're going to go HTTP, oh, only 2 T's though, //localhost. And that local host is set to 5,000. That's where we're going. And then once that data comes back successful, we're going to have our .then response. And our .then, we're going to get that response back. That's going to be a fat arrow function because we're going to do some more dispatching in here. So this is, can you guys guess what happens on the .then from Axios? That's a successful, right? So what are we going to be dispatching here? Oh man, you guys are quiet. What's that?
Combine.
No, we're going to dispatch our success because this .then is successful. Yeah. So here we're going to do our dispatch. Let's dispatch. Our object type is going to be success. And here we're actually getting data back. So we're going to make our payload for our case is going to be the response.data. And then the last one we have is the .catch. This is our error state. When we're talking about checking the 3 states that your app can be in, this is what's going to allow us to set our error state. So in our .catch, we're going to get an error. And truthfully, I always like to console log the errors. It's just out of habit, so I put it in there anyway. But the other thing we're going to do is dispatch. And here we're going to dispatch our type is going to be the error type. And we're going to have a payload, which I got to remember, I believe it's going to be error.message.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah. You can display the whole error, but it looks weird. But if you get the error.message, it actually gives you the string value of the error. So we could set that to our error state if it errors. So now we have just built our first action for our part. Who's ready to use it? Oh, don't everybody jump at once now.
Yeah, it's ready.
All right, so we're ready. So now we're going to call this, and where do we need our data at? So we are going to we'll go into app.js. Let's see what we got in here. Yep, we got our part right here. And we're passing parts here as props, passing parts there as props. So we should be able to run that in here. And we'll do that via use effect. I believe I can use effect here to do the initial render. Let's try it. We're going to use effect because it's a GET request to an API, so we want to lock that in. And in here, we'll call the use effect hook. Use. And I hit cap locks. My keyboard's out of position, that's why. Use effect. Use effect's a callback. Right away, we're going to go put our dependency array in there so we don't get any nasty issues. And we're going to have to import that action. We need that action to be able to call it. So we're going to import get parts. We're going to get that from actions, part action. So now inside of our use effect, do I have it here yet? No, we don't have anything Redux in here, do we? All right, so we need our dispatch as well. We need our use dispatch. So we're going to import use dispatch from React Redux. All right, and then we're gonna go down into our component here. We're gonna set up another const, and we're gonna call it dispatch. And that's gonna be equal to use dispatch. Invoked. So now we have our dispatch method from React Redux. Then inside a use effect here, we're gonna do that dispatch. And what we're going to do is we're going to dispatch that action, get parts, just like that. And now that should work. We are going to verify that. Let's see here. Can I do it in, what's my store container look like? Store container. Yeah, we got props.parts. So I'm going to try and verify it right in here. In our store container, I'm going to import use selector. That's going to come from React Redux. And then we're going to call a constant here. Const parts equals use selector. And here we're going to do our state arrows to state dot parts. All right, everything else in here is props.parts. So now I can console log the parts. And let's see if we get that. Let's see if it worked. Oh, I gotta see. You see this right down here? Prapti, you seeing that?
Yeah,
Loading false, parts loading false in store container. And then this is coming from the Redux logger.
success. Yeah.
Next state, it gives you the previous state. And if you look, the cart had an items, an array of 0. The parts had a parts object. Loading was true. See where we had our loading true with no errors? And then this is the action it took with a payload. And then this was our next state. So if you look, our loading was set back to false, and our parts should have been populated. So if we click on our parts, look, see all that data right there?
Yeah.
That all just came from our server. That didn't come from our object.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now we had an error state, and I got to set up for a 3-second delay so we could play with that loading state a little bit today too. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and refactor the rest of this code to use those parts that we're getting from the API. So while we're in store container, we're going to ditch props.parts here. We're going to ditch props.parts here. I'm going to see, is there anywhere else that needs it? Nope. All right, I'm going to leave that console log there because it should be able to hit, oh, what am I missing on the URL? Store container, where am I getting the URL from? Why is it not getting the object 0 URL? Oh, I know why. I gotta make this a conditional. That's gotta be an if. You know what? It's 118. I hate to do this right now, but basically what it is because of the delayed state. I wonder if I could just type that in. Let's see. Loading is false from this end, so loading. I gotta state that parts. So let's call parts dot loading and okay. All right, let's take a quick 5-minute break just because I gotta go hit the little boy's room. I'm not gonna lie. And then we're gonna refactor these loops to check our loading state because right now what it's trying to do is just trying to run this loop on something that doesn't exist because it's loading for 3 seconds. So we have to fix that. So we are gonna do that as soon as I get back. All right.
Sure.
Use
Okay.
effect, yeah.
What's that?
Can we handle that with a use effect?
It's possible. Yeah, we could. We could
Uh.
try it. There's many options, but we're gonna have to refactor this a little bit for sure. I like where your head's at with the use effect move. I think we should try that first. Cool. All right. See y'all in a minute.
All right.
Two minutes. Molto meglio.
I bet that's what it is. What did I call that?
What is the use ref hook again?
Oh, it's to use a reference to. Oh, it's hard to explain, man. I think I've used it once and I had to look up the documentation for like 5 minutes before I used it. I haven't used it since. Oh, I fixed this too, by the way. We didn't need use effect. The problem is that we changed the way our state's defined to where we got to go get the parts. So it's actually got to be parts.parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where we get the use selector from?
What's that? The use selector here?
Yeah.
You import that in from React Redux up at the top
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. And then where we got rid of the props.parts, make that say parts.parts on lines 41 and 42. And everybody should be happy. And you can even see my loading phase comes in. Like if you watch when I refresh the screen, you'll see this like half off to the side for like 3 seconds until it populates. Wait for it. Bam, there you go. That's our loading state. That's what we're trying to, that's where we're going to create a better user experience by using this, the state machine method and, using our different types of state for loading and errors and so on and so forth, is we can eliminate that weird look and have it display something else. Just something randomly in the middle of the screen without all that. So let me know when you got that caught up, everybody, and we'll move on. We'll still go find everywhere that needs those parts because we want to be able to check that loading state no matter what. So we want to reference this state rather than the local one. Matter of fact, I should break it. Let me go ahead and break that. This should break stuff. Yep, just broke it. Store containers where we just were. So once you get done in store container, we're gonna, I'll actually wait. Let me know when you're done with store container, Prapti, and we'll move on.
I'm done.
Are you done? Okay, cool. All right, we're gonna erase where it says parts equals parts and our prop of the store container and app. And then we're gonna move on to the category container. It looks like that's the only other place that we need it. So we'll go to category container. And yeah, and we have a use selector already imported in here, but we're not using it. So let's just change this. We're gonna change this to parts. And we'll go to state equals state. Instead of the cart, we're gonna use the parts. And then we'll change wherever this says props to parts. We could actually done this differently. We could have called state.parts.parts up there and just got rid of the props, but we're this far. We'll do it either way. So that should still gonna get the error. So once you got that, let me know. Oh, we got one in here that we gotta fix too. Anywhere it's props, make it say parts.parts. Parts.parts. I don't even think we're using that anymore. Yeah, nothing in this props object we're using. Except for the, you know what, I'll just leave it there. All right, let's save that. Are you there, Tommy and Prapti? You caught up to this part?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Mine is throwing an import error for use dispatch.
For use dispatch here?
In import in app.js, maybe some error. Yes.
Oh yeah, you got to bring in the use dispatch hook.
Yeah.
And then you also want to get rid of parts equals parts in the category container. Loading. Work. All right.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, you got everything? Get parts,
Yeah.
use dispatch, category container set. Now, if you look, all of our props are gone for parts and for our cart. So we're using our Redux and our state reducers and all that groovy stuff to make this work. Now we want to conditionally render things. So like we have this all container right here that has the div of app in it. We're going to change this to where we're going to try and conditionally render something for the loading phase. So let's do that. Let's first we got to bring in that state. So let's bring in our use selector here. Because we're going to need that from React. And see where we have the state set up? That's basically where we're going to change. We're going to have a const parts equals use selector state dot parts, because we want that whole state object. And see if you follow me to that point. Give me a say keep going, Chris, if you get to that point.
I'm good to go when you are.
All right.
Good to go, Chris.
All right, we're gonna bring in one more thing because these are cool and it's already in the app. Is we're gonna import a spinner. What kind of spinner do we want? Do we want a spinner? Yeah, let's grab us a spinner. So we're gonna import a capital S spinner. We're gonna get that from React strap. So now we got a spinner component. And then we're gonna, our next work is gonna be down in this return. And we're gonna go under header because I wanna keep the header there. We're gonna go curly braces. And we're gonna call, let's see, parts dot loading. So if parts dot loading is there, we are going to return our spinner. And then colon for else, we're going to return everything else inside that container. So that's the whole all container, everything inside a router. We should alt up arrow that, and that should work. Maybe. Where's my spinner? Well, the conditionally thing worked, but I didn't see my spinner.
Did you import React strap?
It should already be in the, yeah, spinner from React straps should be all I need. And it should already be in our package JSON. Thought I saw that in there. React strap, yeah, it's there.
Huh.
Maybe I have to, let's see, how else do we get our spinner?
I don't really remember.
It might be because I have the app shrunk down, maybe. Let's try and, I'm gonna bring this out of the way. I'm gonna make this real skinny for a minute, make this really big, and refresh it. See if you guys see a spinner anywhere. Oh, it's up here in the corner. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, it's on the top. Well, how do we get above that? That's not right.
Gotta center it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out some place, but it's working. How cool is that? We got a spinner. We're like full on developers now. Yeah, it's running up there. So I wonder if we, well, what's the header then? Why is it on the header? That should be below the header. Let's try doing this. I'm going to try and drop this stuff into the all container. And then I'm going to grab this bottom two, or this bottom piece right here, and move it into all container and see if that works. Oh, it's in the middle. So now let's just give it some margin. Let's add to this a little bit. We're going to play around here now. I'm going to create a div. Oh, div div. Why is my rename not working? Oh, wow. I'm making a mess of this. Let's create a new div. Let's grab this spinner. And then I'll back out of that. We got to remove our colon there and put it here. And we'll give a div with a style equals. I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. I got to remember how to inline style something in here. You know, we got style components. Let's just make that. Const loading equals styled dot div. Oh, I didn't want that, whatever that was. All right, and here we're going to we'll call a margin. Top of 100 pixels. And then we'll go back in down to here. This all lit up bad, probably because of this. Why does it not like that? What did I do wrong there? Oh. Oh, that probably helps too. Okay, we'll make this div, we'll make this loading. Our loading component. Now we can just style it right there. Now that's set up. Oh, look, it's there. I don't like the color. Should we give it a different color? What do you think would be a good color? Red?
Yeah. Or white, because it has a blue background.
You want to do white? Which one is white? That'd be color equals light. There's your white.
Perfect.
I believe we could change the size of that too. So let's see what kind of size we can come up with. Let's take our spinner. We're having fun now. We're gonna give it a size equal to, let's see if XL is one of them. No. I know small is one. So SM for small, it'd be really tiny. Yeah. Where is my size picker? Sizes. Oh, we can actually give it our own size with a style tag. So let's try that. Let's do style equals. Let's give it a width of 10 rem and a height is going to be 10 rem. Let's see what happens when I do that. Oh, it's big now. That was a little bit too big, you think?
Yes.
What if I go oval? That's cool. Check that out.
Let's go.
And they have another thing that's called, in this one called grow. Let's type that in. Let's call it type. Let's check this out. Isn't playing with React Strap fun?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
beyond that, you see how we're using the finite states to create a better user experience. So like if you initially went to this page and it was making that GET request that was taking some time, before we saw like where the screen was just kind of off to the side and the styling was all messed up because there was no data for it to style around yet. And then when it came in, it worked. Now we're conditionally rendering using our state and that action to where whenever it's making its call, we just get this loading screen. And we could take it a step further because we have that div with the spinner loading. We can add text to that. Let's drop a new line in here. Let's give it an H2. We'll just type in. We'll use ... loading. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, it's black, but let's change the color of that. Style equals color white. Cool. Everybody keep up with that? That was fun.
It was fun, but mine is throwing an error.
Oh, no, you never get errors. Come on now. Let's check it out.
I'm an expert in that.
Let's see what we got.
Okay.
Okay, so we get our conditional is off. So we have spinner. Where's your opening loading tag? It looks like it's missing between lines 43 and 44. Give a new line in there and have your opening loading tag. And then close it up. Yeah, save that. See if your error goes away. It's not liking a closing on all container. Is that what I saw? All right, scroll down a little bit. Okay, that's inside of that. Where's our closing curly brace for that? That's probably what it is. On line 61, put a closing curly brace. Save that. Work. Styled is not defined. I think it's because it's a capital S. Scroll back up. Leave it to Christina to do styling and bring in a capital S. So where you made that, yeah, see line 26, make that a capital S and styled instead of lowercase. And save that.
Yeah, that works.
Now it's working? Does it look cool?
Let's see if it's not throwing an error.
Why is it only showing half the screen?
What?
Well, it's going to take a minute to load. So go back to the home page. Something's not working. Yeah, go ahead, click on the console. And parts loading, false, and array. All right, go back into the code. We missed something. Let's find it. Let's check our initial page. All right, And scroll down a little bit. So we got the style div, a margin top of 100 pixels. We got use selector state parts. We got use dispatch. Oh, we're not dispatching yet. We missed that part to get our data. So inside of use effect, line 37,
Mhm.
that's where you're going to call dispatch.
Okay.
And open and close parentheses, and we're going to send dispatch, our function from the action, which I believe was called get parts. Yeah. Oh, you have it as get parts. You need to change that. We got a typo. And you're going to have to change it in your import too. Yeah, change that to
Okay.
get. All right, and then you scroll back down because you got to invoke that function inside the dispatch. So after get parts, put open and close parentheses inside of there. And that should call that action on the refresh to save. It's doing all kinds of cool stuff now. We lost everything.
Oh, lost everything.
Cool. All right, let's go back into the code. Let's see where we missed on that one. All right, use selector state.parts. If parts.loading, then it runs the loading component. Otherwise, it runs the other one. Let's scroll down. You got our else. It'll run the div. That should be right. Let's check your action real quick. Go into your parts action. Export const get parts. Localhost 5000. All right, let's go ahead and go back into your app, in the browser, and we're gonna run an inspect on it. And we want to check the console to check our states, because our logger should be giving us our states. Previous state, loading true, that's good. The next state, check that one. Oh, we missed something there. You see that?
Yeah.
Our loading is not going back to false inside of that state. We got a type of success. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the action. Never mind. Go back down to the next state. Check parts. Loading's back to false, and we got our parts. So your action's working.
Yeah.
We are missing something.
Okay. Yeah. Success. It goes to true.
Yeah, and then the action it takes is with the payload, and it does the type of success. And then if you go to next state, that's the state that you get after it loads. And it sets it back to false, and we get a parts object that has all of our stuff in it. So that's right. That's working. So let's go figure out why.
It comes and goes away.
Yeah, it's like when it goes to the parts.loading is true.
Yeah, like 1 second.
Yeah. Let's scroll back up. We're going to start dissecting the code here a little bit. Let's see, you got your data store, you got get parts, you got the spinner. Use effect. This all looks right. Go ahead and scroll down. That's going to be fine. That's just a styling. Const parts equals use selector state.parts. Using the dispatch, we're calling that on use effect. Go down to all container parts.loading. If it's there, it should run our loading spinner and our H2. Why are we losing all of our styles though? Scroll down a little bit further for all container, router, all containers closed. We have that closing div. That's app.
Maybe I'm closing it the wrong way.
No, that all looks right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Loading and else. Let me check it against mine because they should be the same. So I'm going to full screen. Let me bring this over here. All right, so let's start on your return statement because we should be getting stuff there. Go up to where the return begins. Getting the router, the header, the all container. Then we check to see if parts is loading. We got loading, closing, loading. Our spinner, our H2.
Maybe I didn't give the
Oh, I see what it is. You see where your H2 style equals color white? That's got to be inside the opening tag of the H2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you just take that out and put it over there, save that, see if it works.
Yeah, that works. Wow.
Oh, look, it's doing cool stuff.
Yeah, that's sure. It was a so tiny mistake. And it, like,
Yeah,
blow up your whole page.
yeah, it's because you made the whole page the color of white.
That's why, that's true.
And if you want to check when you get done with that, if you want to check and see what your loading page looks like, go back to home.
Oh, okay.
And then if you click refresh, it should load.
Yeah, that's cool.
And if you put the loading text in the H2, you should see that in your code. So yeah, right where your cursor's at right now, just type in like ... loading. No, inside the H2, not there. Where you'd actually put the text in between the opening and closing H2.
Okay.
Not there. Nope. To the
Here?
right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, in between the two. Right. To the right,
Up
one
here.
more. One more.
Uh-huh.
Right there. Type
Okay.
in ... loading.
Loading.
And save that. Then we should see the word loading when you do the refresh.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So I can show the message what it's saying.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. That's the thunk. And using Redux with state or with actions and the thunk to define your specific types of state
Oh,
or
okay.
the specific states your app's in. So we're going to be in a loading state and we're going to be in a success state and we could be in an error state, but I didn't set anything up to break it to really show the errors. So I just did it for the timeout and setting it up for the loading and the success. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Let me just share it now.
All right.